What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Hands-On channel. Today I want to talk to you about backyard livestock, things that you can have in a suburb sized backyard. You don't need a whole lot of space, just different things you could have that would help to ensure you'll be able to put food on the table indefinitely with these things. Now obviously the chickens, you know, they lay eggs. That's what we're using these for. These are actually dual purpose birds, so that means they can be used for egg layers and or meat birds, just depending on what you want to do. We've decided just to make these egg layers, and we've kept some of the roosters. You'll probably hear them crowing, and in fact this one over here, he's just on the verge, there he is, of walking into the frame. We've actually got two roosters, and we keep that one separate from the hens because he's really rough on the hens. When he breeds them, he gets on their back, tears off their feathers, bites them on the back of the neck real hard, and just he won't take no for an answer. Unlike the other rooster that we let live with the hens, he's much more gentle with them, I guess we'll say. But you know, the chickens have been great. We've had chickens now for, I mean, decades. So we know just about everything to look out for with chickens, and they're really good and fairly easy. Although if you're going to have roosters, they're going to make noise, obviously, things like that. So you want to pay attention to your local codes and regulations and HOA requirements and things like that, so you don't get in trouble. But you know, my wife and I, we like to eat meat, and personally myself, I like to eat meat like with every meal as the primary main course, right? If I don't have meat as the main course, I don't really feel like I ate dinner. Now I typically only eat one meal a day, so that's really important for me to get that meat and that protein. I just love it. I love meat, every kind, barbecued, roasted, grilled. I mean, just you name it, I love it. So that being said, we needed to up our game and have some sort of meat production here on our property. But you know, we have a suburb backyard here, so we couldn't bring hogs in or anything larger like that, or even goats, because you know, it probably wouldn't fly with the neighbors. So what we decided to do a little while back is we got into the meat rabbit game here. And I'm going to take you guys on a tour here and show you, introduce you to our rabbits. First we'll start with the buck here. They're all of our rabbits are super friendly. And you know, they haven't bit us or scratched us or anything like that yet. Not to say they never will. If you scare them enough, they could do that sort of thing. But I wanted to share this with you because I don't think a lot of people are thinking about this. You know, this used to be really common back in the day. I mean, almost every homestead would have rabbits in the backyard, a little rabbit hutch. And in fact, I didn't build this rabbit hutch. When we bought our property, the 100 acres we're trying to develop into a homestead, when we bought that, there was some leftover junk along with it, and some of that junk was actually usable, like this rabbit hutch we're looking at here. I had to patch it up and do a few things to it, and I'm constantly having to repair it just because I didn't build the thing. I can see right there where I'm going to have to go underneath the bottom there and staple up the bottom where it's kind of, the floor has kind of come out a little bit, but they're not falling out. They're contained. Nothing can get to them. No other, you know, raccoons or neighborhood dogs or anything like that can get in there to them. There's a big argument and a big debate online about whether you should raise these rabbits in a colony, which would represent more of a natural state of the, you know, that the rabbits would normally live in, and just let them breed at their own pace and their own content, or you raise them like this in cages where you can control the breeding process. And that's, as you can see, we've chosen the cages for several reasons. For one, we want to be able to secure them from neighborhood dogs, possums, raccoons, skunks, anything like that that might want to come in here and do them harm, you know, possibly eat our meat production plant here. So we need to have them safe, and I'm sure you can build a colony structure that would be safe and predator proof, but we didn't have that. We had this already on hand, so we wanted to use what we had and give this a try. And I'll be honest right up front, this is our first go around with rabbits, so I am not an expert by any means. I'm still learning, but I want to encourage other people that are new to this and they're maybe a little nervous about it. You know, it's no big deal. These things, rabbits, are probably the easiest out of all the animals I have, including my cats and dogs and things like that. These rabbits require the least amount of attention. You have to give them food and water every day, and you know, make sure, you know, I go around and I pick some greens for them, like certain greens are safe for them to eat, certain ones are not. Like Bermuda grass is totally safe for them to eat, so I've been picking a whole bunch of Bermuda grass every day, and I'll put that in their cage and they can munch on that. This is part of a maple tree And you can see they just chew the bark off of that. They love doing that. It gives them something to do, and it also helps to keep their rabbit teeth from getting out of control. Apparently, if they don't have things to chew on, their teeth can grow at an exponential rate, faster than just eating pellets can keep it up with. You know, so it's good to put some wood pieces like this in here and give them something to chew on. And also, if they have something to chew on inside the cage, they're less likely to chew on the inside of the cage. And some of these chew marks here that you might see are from the previous owners. And, you know, maybe they had wood in there and the rabbit just decided to chew on it anyways. I don't know. But so far, mine are staying off the wood of the cage, and they're just chewing on this stuff. And like, this is a piece of pecan. So you got to be really careful, though. Certain kinds of grasses and trees are poisonous to rabbits. Pecan was one of the acceptable good ones for them that they like to eat and munch on. And let's see if he's not interested right now. You might also notice that there's a bottle in there and now it's just melted water, but that was ice a little while ago. This is the first time in several years we've had just weeks and weeks of triple-digit temperatures, and that can be really hard on your livestock of all kinds. So every day around the hottest part of the day, I'll come out here and give them fresh drinking water, and I'll put in one of these ice 1 liters, I think, you know, 1.25 liter, whatever that is. It was a Dr. Pepper bottle, and we'll freeze that up every night, and we can throw that out there, and they will lay right up against the side of it. And I'll show you this one over here. I don't know if you can see her, but she's totally got her whole back up against that. But yeah, they're friendly. They don't really bite unless you do something to make them bite, like if you really scare them or something like that. But I've yet to be bitten by one or even scratched by one because I'm really cautious. When I put my hand in, I go real slow and I kind of let them adjust to my hand first, and then I let them sniff. Get a sniff, buddy. It's all right. There you go. It's me, bud. It's me. And then I'll give them some pets, because I want to make their life the best it possibly can be. I mean, I realize they're for meat production, but I kind of look at these because they're our trio. And if you don't know, a trio means 1 buck and 2 does. Because they're our trio, these are going to be our parents. So we're going to have these rabbits around for a long, long time, producing kits. And ideally, they can produce a lot. Each one of these females can produce they can reproduce 5 times a year, and every time they have a litter, they can have anywhere from about 5 to 14. I've heard as many as 14 kits per female doe. So that's a whole bunch of rabbit meat. And what you do is, once the kits are born, you let the mothers wean them out and, you know, nurse them and everything. And then once they're weaned off of the mother's teat, then you can take them down and put them in what they call a grow out cage, and they'll be able to eat grass and things like that and have a really great life, you know, for the 12 weeks that they get to live. Because after 12 weeks, if you want to process them, then you're going to have to you're going to have to do them at about 12 weeks, because if you don't, then they won't be as tender and as good. So the grow out season on these things is only 12 weeks. So you've got 1 month for gestation and breeding, and then 12 weeks after that, and then you're putting just gobs of meat in your freezer. And again, I'm a carnivore, so I like to eat meat with every meal. If that's not you, then you might not be interested in this. But I think a big part of the problem today in our society is that people, all of us, have been disconnected from where our food comes from, whether that be the farm or the rabbit hutch or the cattle in the cattle yard, those kinds of things. We're just disconnected from it. We don't realize what all goes into not only growing these animals out to get them to processing weight and age and all that, but the actual process of processing the meat. So I think it's a really important thing. I've never done it, I'll tell you the truth, and I am, you know, a little reluctant, a little nervous about what's going to happen the first time I have to kill one of these things, because, and it won't be these, but it'll be their offspring. But, you know, I'm a human being, so I mean, I don't enjoy taking another animal's life, especially one that's as cute as a rabbit or something like that. But again, we're so disconnected, even myself, we're so disconnected from where the food comes from, that I feel like it's a necessary evil, I guess, if you want to say that. It's something you have to do if you want to eat meat, and I do want to eat meat. You know, we've got lots of people like Klaus Schwab and all these people at the WEF talking about, oh, you will eat the bugs and you will like it. You will eat the bugs instead of meat, blah, blah, blah. And they're saying cows fart too much and all this other stuff. The reality is it's all about control. They want to control you and me. I think the best way to protect yourself against that and prevent them from being able to control you is to control your own life and where your food comes from. And again, I was kind of doing the rough math a moment ago, but each one of these does can have, let's just say they have 6 kits each, right? Which would be a low number. If each one of my does has 6 kits 5 times a year, that's, I believe, 60 or 70 rabbits that I'll be able to put in the freezer. Well, obviously, you know, 60 or 70 is more than 52 weeks in the year, so that's going to be more than 1 rabbit a week that my wife and I will be able to eat just off of this trio here. So that gives you an idea of what you can expect. And again, if these mothers end up producing large litters, like, you know, 8 to 14 each, then we could be having a situation where, you know, we're having rabbit 3 or 4 times a week, you know. So you don't really know what's going to happen until they start producing and things like that. So we'll decide how often we're going to breed them based on how big a litters they have and things like that, and we'll be able to work it out. But the whole point is that we'll be able to put protein in our bellies, in our freezers, for the price of rabbit feed and whatever it costs you to, you know, build your cage and your setup. And these water bottles were like $5 or $6 a piece. So, I mean, of course, nothing is free. It's going to cost you, you know, at least a few $100s probably to get your initial investment going. But once you do, if you take care of them, they can potentially last you for years and years. Now, after about 3 years or so, the breeding will probably start slacking off and they won't produce as much. And at that point, it's time to cull the older rabbits and bring in some younger blood, some, you know, some newer line. And there's some different things. It gets a little confusing, but there's a thing called line breeding where it's okay for the father or the mother to reproduce with their offspring. But and I know that sounds weird, but what's not okay is you're not allowed to have like brothers and sisters reproducing, because if you do that, then there's chances for, you know, bad things, bad genetic characteristics to come through. So they claim that's the way to do it. If you want to keep any of your rabbits for future breeding, what you would do is, you know, keep the offspring. And you'd have to, since we have 2 does, maybe there's a way we could do it. And I might even have to bring in some new genetics at some point in the future if I wanted to pick up a new buck or something like that and just breed one of the females or some sort of deal like that. The point is that you have to pay attention to that stuff and keep good records and things like that. But they're a lot easier to take care of than chickens for sure, because they don't make as much of a mess. And one of the great things, I don't know if you can see it in this shot here, but one of the great things about rabbits is they put off a whole bunch of rabbit pellets or manure that you can use directly on your garden. They're one of the few animals that the manure is not too hot. You can actually put that straight on your garden. It's a win-win situation for somebody that's already set up with a little victory garden and stuff like that, because you can use these rabbit pellets immediately. But yeah, without further ado, this is our buck here, and his name is Peter. We named him Peter, like Peter Cottontail, that kind of a deal. And he's really friendly. I try to reach in there and give him some pets a few times a day, and I make sure and let him smell me. But you can see he's not worried. He's staying all stretched out like that, and that's an indication he's very comfortable with what I'm doing. If he was to kind of get in a small ball in the corner, that tells you he's getting worried about what I'm doing. He doesn't trust me. But he's starting to trust me, and you can just see, compared to my hand, you know, he's at least 2 or 3 hands big. And so these rabbits here are not to breeding age yet. They're about 10 weeks old at this point, I'm going to say, maybe 12 weeks old. So they're not really ready to breed until like 6 months, they say, or about 6 months. I think the females are actually a little bit more mature than the males, so they can go as early. Some breeds can go as early as 4 months. But we're going to give them the full 6 months so they can mature before we start breeding them or anything. And that should work out just perfect. By fall, we'll be ready to start our breeding program. And hopefully early in the winter, we'll be putting meat in the freezer. I mean, I'm really excited about this. The one thing that, you know, obviously, I don't like killing things, so that's going to be the downside to it. And it's just one of those deals, though, in my opinion, you need to do that. It's just part of life, part of the circle of life. It's really no different than if you go fishing and you clean fish. It's really no different than that. yeah, it's a little gross while you're doing it, but it's so good once you do. And a couple of other things you might want to know about rabbits is that they're really low in fat. So if maybe you're on a reduced cholesterol diet or something like that, you know, maybe you've got high cholesterol or allergies, that's another thing. They're very low on the allergenic scale. So that's good news. This one here, we named her Mama Cass. She is super friendly. She doesn't even care. The other ones will often run back to the back corner, but this girl here, she doesn't seem to be as scared of human hands. Now she's probably going to run off to the back corner now that I said that, but I'll try to give her some pets here and just let her know she is so soft. Her fur is the softest. So if we wanted to breed rabbits to, you know, collect their fur and process the fur, we'd probably want to go with this one, just because she has this super soft fur. And this breed of rabbit is called a Tamuk. It stands for Texas A&M. How rude of you, Mr. Rooster. Why'd you interrupt me like that? It stands for Texas A&M University Composite. So what that means is, down at the Texas A&M University, they specifically, selectively bred these rabbits to be very high heat tolerant. And that's one of the reasons we went with this particular breed. If you're in a colder climate, this breed probably wouldn't be a good breed for you, but I'm in a hot climate here, very similar to what it's like in Texas. So this was a really great fit for our certain circumstance here, because the past 3 or 4 days it's been triple digits, and that's one of the reasons I have these frozen bottles. Of course, they're not frozen anymore, but they're still cool, and they will lay up against these and just get cooled off. And I also have a fan going down there on the end, blowing air across them. But yeah, it's really, for the amount of work you have to put in, the rewards are very high on rabbits. In a way, I think if you like to eat meat, they're much higher than chickens, at least egg chickens. You know, now we get 5 or 6 eggs out of our hens every day. And so that's the other side of our equation. We have eggs coming in, so that's going to be a great source of protein and just, you know, putting food in our belly. But, you know, you get tired of eating eggs all the time. And if what they say is true about the supply chain and all that, getting more and more fragile all the time, it might be a great idea for you guys to get set up with some backyard meat rabbits. They're a lot of fun, and we're going to give them the best life they can possibly have. So when these have offspring, we'll let the offspring grow out on the ground in grow out cages, so they'll be able to be on the ground and at least, you know, eat some fresh grass and things like that, which I think is good for them. And so this one here, her name is Mama Cass. She's super friendly. I really like her. She's my favorite out of the doe. She's my favorite doe. I also like the buck over here, Peter. He's pretty cool. And if you have kids, you know, if you have young kids, this would be a great thing to get them into, just to show and teach them about the circle of life. One of the things I heard recently that was pretty powerful was that they were saying that, you know, farm kids that grow up on the farms and stuff, they don't have all this confusion about gender and all this other stuff that's going on, or about what a woman is or what a man is or any of that stuff. And it's because they were raised on farms where they understand the circle of life. And this could be a great thing, a great teaching tool for your children to get them into not only the circle of life, but where meat comes from and what it takes to process meat and things like that, and the different things that you can do and utilize and use as much of the rabbit as you possibly can. Now this one here, you see how she kind of scurries back in the corner. She's the shy girl. We haven't named her yet, so if you guys want to help me out and help get me a name for this rabbit, that would be helpful. But I still reach in here and pet her, but she'll usually go back in the corner like that because she's just really hand shy. She doesn't trust me yet. She thinks I'm going to reach in there and break her neck and eat her or something like that. So I have to be really cautious with her and move slow around her. Let her get a sniff, and I try to hand feed her. I've got her some chives here. They like the chives. Come on. Nope, she's not going to eat it. She's a little too nervous right now. So yeah, help me out in the comments. Let me know what you would name this rabbit if this was yours. Again, this is going to be one of our breeder rabbits, so these will kind of be like pets, although they're serving a function of producing livestock and meat for us, you know. But the point is that we're going to really try to take care of these and treat them as good as we can. And it is hard because you don't want to fall in love, because then it's going to be really hard. You know, when you look in their eyes and you have to do the slaughter, that's going to be really hard. But I think it's supposed to be. I think that's part of the equation that we're missing here in 2022. So I highly encourage you, get into the rabbit game. Meat rabbits is the way to go. And we really like these Timuks. If you're in a hot climate where you get triple-digit temperatures in the summertime, look into these Timuk rabbits. Also, the Californians are supposed to be really good, and the New Zealands. But in the end, we're going to have some really good meat production here on the property, where we're putting at least one rabbit a week in the freezer. And I think that's huge. That's a huge deal. And especially as meat prices continue to soar, that could give you a guaranteed way to put food on your table. So guys, let me know. Again, I'm not an expert. This is our first go around with rabbits. So if you've raised rabbits before and you have any tips that you'd like to share with others and myself, please feel free to do so down in the comments. We always love reading them. As a collective of individuals, I think we're all smarter. We all glean knowledge from other people. So it's great to read those comments and share those comments with others. And if I learn something from you, I may feature it on a video in the future as we're going. So I look forward to reading your comments and appreciate you stopping by. I highly encourage you, get into some meat production in your backyard. Rabbits is about the best way that I can think of, the cheapest, best way that I can think of, that honestly, you could raise these things stealthy, where if you weren't really allowed to have rabbits technically, you could hide these things somewhere and nobody would know. None of your neighbors would know, because they make no noises. Their manure has no smell. So they're like the perfect backyard animal for a suburb backyard house. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Until then, guys, we'll see you next time.